Welcome back to Burner Tuner, everybody, and today we're going to be tackling the 12-volt conversion for our 1973 Yamaha CT175. In addition to our vape ignition, we're going to be going over a few different things we need to convert this bike over to a 12-volt setup. First thing on the table here is going to be converting from our old 6-volt setup to a 12-volt. Now I've got a battery box here. I'm gonna clean this thing up and do my best to restore it and then get a nice AGM battery thrown in there. Then moving over to our gauges, we're going to have to update our small light bulbs in here to a 12-volt setup, as well as replace some of these bushings with nice OEM Yamaha parts. Moving on, same thing with our turn signals. We gotta get 12-volt bulbs in here and get these things hooked back up. And then lastly, we're going to get our headlight conversion done. Now this is an OEM sealed beam 6-volt setup, so I can't take this apart and just put a bulb in there, but what we have done is ordered a nice LED 12-volt conversion from Octane Lighting, and that should be here soon. Also included in the lighting conversion will be getting our tail light converted over to 12 volts, and then getting our wiring cleaned up overall, and just to make this a nice, tidy package. So let's get right into it. All right, so we've got all of our nice vape ignition stuff installed. Our stator is down here, regulator rectifier, up to our new ignition coil with new coil wire down to the spark plug. So unfortunately, what this has done is left us with a few wires with no home. So what I'm thinking, either we're going to just keep these taped off and tuck them out of the way, or we might go through and actually pull them out of the harness from these plugs here, but I don't know if that's really the best option. I might leave it factory and just try to cap these things off and get them out of the way. But while we're in here addressing the harness, we gotta take a look at what the factory, or really lack thereof, setup looked like. So this is kind of the mess of wiring that we have in the bike right now. Not really pleasing to the eye, unfortunately, but let's take a look at what we've got. So right here, this is our neutral indicator light, and we know that because of this very light blue wire that comes down to here. And what I do to make sure this is the correct wire is I get my ohm meter, set it to the continuity mode, and when I touch the wire in one end to the other end where the bulb is at, if it beeps, I know that I got the right wire. Moving further back, the pink and blue, this is the circuit for our horn. And then we've got off of the dark green and the brown wire, we've got our turn signals here. And these were not hooked up, but I have labeled them as left turn and right turn. So hopefully we can get all this stuff wired up in the correct way. And still not 100% sure what either of these are for. I think as we troubleshoot the bike, maybe we'll get a better idea of what they're for. As we move to the middle section of the bike here, a couple of things that we will be getting rid of. One, these 3 wires that would have come off of the stock stator setup. We'll also be getting rid of this white wire and one of the red wires, because this was for our silicone rectifier. And since we have a combination regulator rectifier, we don't need these anymore, so we can get these out of the way too. This yellow, green, and yellow combo wire, along with this ground wire here, will go down to our brake switch on the foot brake. And then as you can see, we've got all these wires running down to the regulator rectifier like they should be, so we'll just get these shortened up, tidied up as much as we can, get them tucked up nice and out of the way. Moving to the back here, this is part of the wiring harness that goes to the tail section for both of our brake light and the running light. And then over here, we've got this brown and dark green, which are for our turn signals. And those we'll just plug in and run back here as well. So the first thing I'm addressing, I'm working my way back to front. I feel like it's a little bit less intimidating as I start back here. We're gonna get all of this tidied up. We've got some crusty stuff here. We'll try to get this cleaned up. We're gonna rewrap these wires, get a 12-volt bulb in here, and get it hooked up and cleaned up, done the right way. we've got this rear taillight harness all cleaned up, reconnected under here, very, very tidy. Went ahead and polished up this taillight just for the heck of it. And you can see down here is where this junction is. So we've got 3 for the taillight and then the 2 that go to each of the turn signals. This will get stuck inside of this little protective sleeve. And then that's gonna be these 5 plugs right here. And we've got our inline fuse, and this will all get tucked away real nicely right up under here. All right, guys, just a quick update on where we're at. Of course, we left off, we had just got the rear lights all cleaned up and put inside this nice tidy little harness bundle here. And I had taken apart the fusible link here, and I did that so I could see, you know, where that fuse power is coming from. And what I found is that this individual red wire here, this is the one that's gonna be sending power through that fuse. So what I've decided to do is take my regulator rectifier, and I'm going to put a female end on this so we can tap into this feed to the fuse 12 volts, and then that will come through here. What we've done here is we've actually taken the main headlight circuit and we've tapped it in between the red wire. So I know this looks kind of weird, but you can imagine this red wire is going straight across and the yellow wire is tapping right into it. The reason I did it this way is because this yellow wire, this is the headlight circuit, and it comes up to our ignition switch here. And so if we go 1 click, that will not send power to the headlights. 1 more click, it will make that contact, so that 12 volts will end up going to the headlight just like we want, and it operates off the switch with no issues. Additionally, we've got our new battery box in here, and I've got all the wires pulled out of the way, but what we can see is that it's just almost too big. We can't quite get the holes in here to line up, and that's because it's making contact on the back side with the muffler here. So we're gonna pull this out, bend this thing into shape, and after that, we'll get a wire wheel, clean this thing up, give it a fresh coat of paint, and then throw it back in there. And that will provide a nice area for our battery to be mounted. And then on the side here, we can probably tap in and bolt down our regulator rectifier and have it all in a nice, very tidy package. And from there, we'll go ahead and start shortening wires to their exact lengths we need. And we should be good with the main part of the harness, and then we can move on to the front where the headlight is. All right, guys, so moving on to the headlight here, we've got our old 6-volt sealed beam set up. And what that means is that I can't actually open this up to replace the bulb. So unfortunately, that means replacing the entire unit, the glass housing, bulb inside. And for that, we've gone to Octane Lighting for one of their single 6 3/4 inch LED setups. Now this is gonna provide the same H4 style plug that would be on this, but in a 12 volt system with a much brighter LED bulb. So let's go ahead and crack open the old headlight here, pull things apart, and have a look inside here. So you can see here our H4 style plug, and again, this is not possible to come out. The glass actually spins around, which is kind of interesting, but I assume you could probably, you know, bend this all back if you really wanted to try, but just not worth it for the price of one of these LED lights. It was just much more cost and time effective to just grab one of these, and I think this will give us a better light output overall than that 6-volt ever could have. So let's take a look at what we got here. All right, so this is pretty nice. Looks like it's actually got a kind of a blue tint to the bulb in there. Interested to see how that looks. Might not be the biggest fan. I do prefer just the plain white or even a little bit of yellowish headlight. But here we go. You see we've got about the same size. They're gonna have the same exact plug on the back there. So yeah, we're gonna have to come up with some kind of clever mounting solution to get this in here. The stock headlight housing fits a little wonky on here. It's not perfect. Almost fits, but I think maybe if we shave a little bit down on the edge here, we could probably get this to sit very nicely inside the headlight. And then we'll look at finding a way to actually bolt this in place so that it doesn't move around on us. All right guys, quick change of plans here. So the factory headlight housing that this came in would not fit with our new 12 volt LED setup. So I went on Amazon and I purchased a flat black, very plain headlight bucket. And this is what we got, and I think it looks pretty good. The headlight fits there pretty smartly, and it came with all of the connectors and brackets and stuff that we need. So I think we'll be good with this. Now, for the turn signals, we are going to be ditching these old housings altogether. I could just get, you know, new bulbs, but these things are getting kind of old, kind of worn out, and they're just not in the greatest shape. Like some of these are missing the reflectors inside. So what we've gone to instead is some nice LED turn signals. These being the ones for the front. You can see they've got amber and white for like a daytime running light whenever I'm running with the headlights on. So that'll be kind of cool, give us some more forward visibility. Now these are pretty small, very compact. I'm hoping the light output is pretty good, and they're actually threaded, so I can insert these in the previous holes that would have come for the factory ones. And this should bolt up pretty nicely. It's just gonna be a matter of getting it all wired up and deciding if we need to get some LED resistors to stop with like super fast flashing or whatnot. To top it all off, we've got our new 12 volt battery here. This is a YT X7, so it's a 12 volt, 7 amp hour battery. And this is compact enough to fit in our AT3 battery box. And it's also a non-spillable sealed lead acid battery, so we're not worried about any spills when we're going off-road, or if we happen to lay the bike over, we should be okay there. So that's what we've got for now. Let's get back to the bike, finish installing these parts, and get this thing started up and see how this lighting looks. Looks like we're gonna be in good shape. All right, a little bit more progress on the bike. Over here, we've got our battery box, and we have cleaned this up. We hit it with some paint stripper, went over it with the Dremel tool quite a bit to get off any major rust. Got some prep spray on it, and then we hit it with this rust barrier. It's a rust preventative coating, black paint, and this just goes over anything that would have been slightly rusted to help it prevent from rusting any further. Fortunately, this is a really, really solid piece. This came off a 1973 AT3, which is a 125, and that is a 12 volt system. That's why it has this bigger battery box. So once this dries, we'll get it thrown back on the bike, and we can get everything hooked up and see how it looks. Okay, now unfortunately, the way this stuff is wired up, it's just nasty. It would take more time than I really want to spend right now to really clean this up. It looks like a lot, and it's partially because it is, but partially because everything in the harness runs up here behind the headlight so that you can have signal sent to the dash of the motorcycle. Things like your turn signals, the brights, your neutral indicator, of course the dash lights themselves. So all of that getting tied in here, it's a little sloppy, but it's what we got to deal with. So let's go ahead and get this stuff all shoved in the bucket here and get the headlight on and get this thing to fire up. Now we've got both of our turn signals hanging out here for now. We need to get some resistors to get those lights to work properly. Let's go ahead and get this headlight popped in here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. We got our turn signals placed here for now, and I found out these aren't actually white lights, these are red, so these are gonna go to the back of the bike. Just gotta switch those around. But let's pop this gas tank on here and see how everything is working with the new electronics. There's our headlights. Choke on, fuel on. Not bad. All right. Pretty successful first ride. We know we got to make a few adjustments. Carb was leaning out a little bit under heavy load, so I'll probably up the main jet size. I actually went down on it because I thought that could have been what's flooding out the carb. So I'll probably go back to what the factory spec is and see if it runs any better. Right now it's topping at about 65. Could probably get up to 70 with that correct jetting. But so far so good. All right, so we've got our new turn signals wired in. The yellow wire, that is going to the bright circuits. So whenever I hit the brakes, it'll send power through that. And then the red wires are going to the actual daytime running light circuit. So that one, whenever I'm just cruising with the lights on, it'll illuminate those at their lowest red setting. And then on the black wire, we've got our white, which is the ground wires for these. So those are just going to a common ground. And then dark green is our right blinker and the brown is our left blinker. So we've got those wired up as well. So this should be all good. I'm gonna turn on the key, see what those lights look like, and make any adjustments if we need to. So it looks like we are working, but we don't have our daytime running lights. That might be a problem for a different day. At least I got these working for now. And as far as the turn signals, I think I'm still gonna need the flasher relay to get these working. So, you know, we've got it on, but they are not flashing. And I think that's due to the fact that I don't have a resistor. So we'll wire in the resistors as well. I picked some of those up from Advanced Auto Parts today. All right, guys, we just finished up wrapping up the wiring on the bike here. Let me walk you through what we did so far. All right, starting at the back here, you saw we tore this apart, cleaned up all the wiring in here, brought it to a new harness setup. And with this, we actually ran our new turn signals here. Now, these are some 12-volt LED signals from Amazon. And what we did was we just tapped into the ground and the positive cable for each one of the turn signals. So these will come on when the switch is hit. Now, moving forward from here, we've actually had to put some LED resistors in here. And this is to put more load on the turn signal circuit so that the actual solenoid will turn on and start clicking. Because if you just run those LEDs on the factory solenoid, it will not work. It'll just stay lit. Now moving forward from here, we've got our new battery box with our 12-volt battery in here and the vape ignition rectifier regulator bolted to it. And so I know this kind of looks like a mess right now. What I'd like to do is go back with some wire sheathing and clean this stuff all up, get it covered up and protected from the elements. Right now, this was just a proof of concept to see if I can get my 12-volt system working with the lights. And so far, it does. Now, moving forward from there, we've got this all wired up. Same way with the turn signals in the back end. No resistors needed up here because once I have one in the circuit, it works for all of them. But we've got new cabling and new sheathing on all of the lights up here. We've got new 12-volt bulbs in the gauges, the new LED headlight, and all of the wiring has been cleaned up, tidied up, and it all fits nice and neatly inside of the headlight bucket. So I'll go ahead and turn this on for you so you can see that headlight does work great. We've got our low beam and our brights. And then of course here we got our turn signals on both sides. So this is working just great. And man, this 12-volt system here, talk about reliable. This is awesome. Let me go ahead and put you guys up over here in the tripod and get this thing fired up for you. Now, no promises on how many kicks this is gonna take. Seems to be pretty good so far though. So we'll go ahead and get the fuel on, get the choke on. Just to show you, this is a cold bike right now. Can't beat that, man. So it's running great, no issues, very little smoke. I've got the oil pump dialed in like it should be, and man, this thing is running like a top. All right, well, there you have it, guys. Another episode down on the CT175 and an entire electrical system overhauled and operating like it should. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I really hope you picked up some tips for your own wiring projects. For me, this is definitely going to be an ongoing process, but for now, we've got a runner, we've got a proof of concept on our 12-volt system, and it's all working like it should. Now, off camera, I'm going to go up, clean it up, and prepare for the next episode. Next time on Bruner Tuner, you're going to see this thing get some suspension overhaul, so stay tuned for that. See you then. Peace.